All right, today is Tuesday, the 12th of August, 2025, and this is our fourth episode, I believe, of Alternate Tuning Tuesday. Today we are going to look at E-flat standard tuning, which could also be called D-sharp standard tuning if you're feeling squirrely. Let's take a look at how to get there. Basically, we're going to take standard tuning, which goes E, A, D, G, B, E, and we're going to go down a half a step. So this should be D sharp. It is going to show as D sharp on most tuners, but it is also E flat. Same thing. G sharp or A flat. That's C sharp or D flat. I don't know what's buzzing there, but it sounds abnormal. Just the way the tuner's clipped. That should be F sharp, A sharp, B flat, D sharp, or E flat. So what does that give us? That gives us the same intervals that we normally have on the guitar. That gives us the exact same intervals, a half step down. Why on earth would you want to do that? Why would you want to take your standard guitar tuning and just shift it down half a step? What are the benefits? Well, there's a few different areas we can talk about. First of all, let's talk about playability. If you are learning to play things like bends and vibrato and bar chords, it goes a long way to have a little less tension. So if you have, let's say, 10 gauge strings on two guitars, I don't think I actually have that experiment set up because these are 13s, but let me grab my standard tune guitar. Now, two guitars, same scale, same string gauge. If you go to bend a given note, especially on an acoustic guitar, it takes a lot of force to bend a string. Now, if you are a little bit looser, just that half step looser, that is so much easier to bend. Now, of course, bear in mind, it's not the same note if we're at the same fret, but you can go up that one fret and access the same notes. We'll come back to that principle in a second, but bendability, it's a nice thing to have. Vibrato, same thing applies. Depending on what kind of vibrato you want to produce, whether it's a bendy one or a shifty one, it's just easier to get there. Let's talk about string gauge. So this guitar, these are 13s, which are technically mediums, but for most players that's considered pretty thick. At any given string gauge, you're dealing with more momentum, more vibration. So having those a little looser can let those heavier, thicker strings ring out a little more at any given degree of pick attack. Let's talk about the accessibility of what you already know on the guitar. Because we are one step different, you can play a lot of things and you can still have them sound roughly the same. If you take let's take the open position of the E minor pentatonic scale. So it's still a pentatonic scale. Now it's an E flat minor or a D sharp minor pentatonic scale, but it's still, because the intervals are the same, it's still going to be the same intervals. They're still going to be the same distance apart. You still have a one, you still have the same notes. So if you're playing, for example, your G major scale, which in this case would be an A sharp major scale, that's still the same intervals. You can still play an entire piece and it will still sound coherent. It won't be in the same key. The key will be shifted by a semitone. The same applies to chord shapes. Take your G major chord, which in this case is an A sharp major chord. D7, C sharp 7 in this case. You can play the entire song and you'll be shifted down one semitone, but it's still going to be in key. It's not going to be in the same key. Well, why would you ever want to do that? Well, let's say you have a fairly deep voice. Let's say you have a fairly deep voice and you can't hit the high note in a given song. Or it's a song normally sung by a female vocalist and you're a male vocalist and you're trying to get to the same range. You can take that. You can already transpose keys with a capo by changing the chords, by moving it into a different key and doing different chord shapes. But this way, let's say you've been learning a song. Let's say you've got a chord progression, standard tuning. You can't quite hit the notes. Well, you play the same chord progression on this and you're a semitone closer to hitting those notes. This is where things like a baritone guitar, which is actually tuned down, 2.5 steps, that's pretty extreme compared to this. That's where an instrument like that shines. Keep in mind, just because you've moved down half a step, you can still access all the same notes. You just have to move a step closer to the bridge. So if you wanted to play that G major scale, you just start 1 fret further. Now we're back in G major. Let's say you want to play that A minor chord. Well, you just play it like you would normally play a B flat minor with a bar. Now it's an A minor. A lot of the advantages of loosening up the strings still hold if you go ahead and put a capo on the first fret. So now we have lowered the tuning of the guitar by 1 semitone and we have raised it by 1 semitone, but we still have that looser string tension. So if you're trying to learn bar chords, well, let's say your B flat minor, or your B minor is a little buzzy. Well, 1 fret down, it might just be a little easier. Now you can go extreme with this. You can tune down like 3 or 4 semitones, but then you're going to start to have buzzing. You're going to start to have problems. It's nice to be able to go 1 step down. There are artists who use this. Colter Wall, who I'm a big fan of, kind of a country, folk, finger style, very haunting music. He has a very deep voice. He generally plays with his guitar tuned down 1/2 step and a capo on the first fret. This makes it a little easier for him to play. Things that involve a lot of bending. He plays a lot of that kind of thing where it helps to have some slack in the strings. If you listen to any of his music, you can hear what I'm talking about. The guitar sounds dark and deep and also still jangly. It's still got that kind of folk, that thing going, which is, it's valuable to be able to access that. Who else plays in this kind of tuning? Well, Stevie Ray Vaughan famously used very thick strings for an electric guitar and was tuned down 1/2 step. That made it easier to bend. That made it easier for him to really make a given string dance the way he wanted it to. Now, all your licks are still going to be accessible too. Now, if they involve open strings, you might have to think about getting a finger on that first fret. If they don't involve open strings, if you're just doing you have two options. You can keep it a half step lower, or you can move them up. With chords, you're gonna have to introduce a bar if you want to move them up, but that's a pretty valuable thing to use for practice. Let me explain what I mean by that. I just told you how to make a given bar chord easier. You down tune. You put the capo to compensate for the down tuning. Now you have looser strings to do that bar chord with. You also have closer together frets, which can make it easier to reach some of those stretchier chords. But there's a way to do this on hard mode too. What do I mean by hard mode? Well, let's say you have a song that you normally play in open tuning. Let me just make up a chord progression here. Let's say you're doing let's say you're doing E minor, so that's obviously down a half step. But if you wanted to play that same song, playing it that way, well, guess what? You have forced yourself to play bar chords. And if that's what you're going for, so your E minor's here, your D, gonna be really hard. You're gonna be here. And your C, gonna be tricky. C is one of those chords I can never bar well, but this is precisely how I could practice it. So if I play through that a bunch of times, I'm gonna get better at those bar chords, which means I'm gonna get better at barring in general. So that's a way to take a melody you already know without having to think about it and make it a hell of a lot harder if there's a skill you want to practice like bar chords. It's a pretty handy trick for the beginner, pretty handy trick if you want to do things the hard way. Some other people who play in this tuning, B.B. King uses it sometimes, Jimi Hendrix used it sometimes. A lot of late 90s, early 2000s, and some mid 90s rock kind of just played in this tuning without a capo because it made things sound, darker, more prone to distortion, thicker, more sinister. A lot of what, if you go on Spotify and search for divorced dad rock, a lot of that kind of music, a lot of bands like Seven Mary 3 and stuff like that, they were always dropped a little bit live, played a lot of their stuff, tuned down half a step. It gave them a distinct sound, it worked with the singer's voice, and it was really a convention in the genre of the time. So that, if you want to access that kind of music, it's very valuable. I really enjoy a lot of Audioslave songs, and a lot of those were originally played in drop D or even like drop B tuning, but a lot of the popular ways to play them that you'll find in YouTube tutorials, like chord tutorials online, they're going to be in standard tuning. Chris Cornell had a voice where you could play those things in standard tuning and still knock it out of the park. I don't have that voice, so I will often play tuned down half a step because I can more easily hit some of the notes he hit. It's easier to stretch low than it is to stretch high, and when he stretched high, I can't keep up with him, but I can almost keep up with him if I'm tuned down half a step. So that is something I will also do sometimes. A lot of the advantages of this tuning are things that apply to alternate tunings in general. It forces you to think about what note you're hitting. It forces you to count out in your head. Let's see, where is the G gonna be on this string again? Okay, it's right here. So I normally access my G here on the E string, but now it's here. That forces me to think about where it is in standard tuning. It forces me to count up one. It reinforces those neural pathways of knowing where those notes are. So that is E flat standard or D sharp standard tuning. I don't know what we're gonna look at next week. I'll get back to you on that. I'm having a lot of fun playing fingerstyle lately. I'm also having a lot of fun playing electric blues. We'll see what I come up with in that in the near future. I'm gonna try to post a few more songs this week. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.